Peace walked into church every Sunday like a breeze of calm. Wrapped in modest Ankara dresses and a Bible always pressed to her chest, she moved with the grace of someone heaven had personally touched. The women admired her, the men respected her, and even children seemed to hush when she walked by. No one could ever imagine that behind those calm eyes lived a mind that never stopped calculating. She wasn't just a member of the church, she was the face of it. Peace led worship songs with a voice soft as rain and volunteered for everything from children's programs to charity drives. When someone needed comfort, she was there. When the offering needed counting, Peace was trusted without question. She was what everyone hoped a good woman should be: humble, selfless, spiritual. But while the congregation saw a saint, Peace saw opportunity. Sundays were Peace's stage. She wore crisp white lace and matching headgear, not too flashy, but enough to draw admiration. Her seat in the front row was never empty. When the choir rose, she led with a voice so soothing that even those half asleep during the sermon sat up to listen. She didn't just sing, she ministered, or so everyone thought. After service, people lingered just to greet her. "Sister Peace, God bless you," they would say, some slipping envelopes of appreciation into her palm. She never refused. Instead, she'd smile and whisper, "To God be the glory." But inside, she noted every name, every gesture. To Peace, church wasn't just a house of worship, it was her marketplace. Every Wednesday, Peace hosted a women's prayer meeting at her apartment. Candles lit the corners, worship music played softly, and tears flowed freely. Women poured out their struggles, joblessness, heartbreak, sickness, and Peace prayed with passion. She laid hands, anointed heads, and gave prophetic words that often felt too accurate. But after everyone left, the same Peace who cried for mercy opened a worn journal. Inside were notes: who was desperate, who had money, who had connections. She studied her congregation like a strategist. While others sought miracles, Peace was building a plan. The pastor once said, "If we had 10 pieces, the church would touch heaven." That was the day he handed her control of the offerings. It was only meant to be temporary, but weeks passed, and she remained in charge. Who better? She was dependable, discreet, and holy. Peace knew every detail of the church's finances: who gave what, how much went to charity, and how often funds came in. At first, she handled it faithfully. But temptation doesn't knock loudly. It starts as a whisper. And Peace had begun to listen. Beneath her soft words and bright smile, Peace nursed a quiet resentment. Her life had been nothing but sacrifice. She had no husband, no car, no flashy clothes. Every time someone testified about a promotion or new business, she clapped, but her chest burned. "How long will I serve and remain poor?" she asked herself one night, staring at the small plastic bag of Gary in her cupboard. That night, she didn't pray. She calculated. If people could believe she was holy, they would believe anything else too. It started with a WhatsApp broadcast. Peace typed out a heartbreaking message about a widow named Mama Esther who was allegedly struggling to feed her children after losing her husband. She added a blurry photo she pulled from Google and signed it, "Please help however God leads you." Within hours, people responded. Bank transfers, prayers, voice notes. Her phone buzzed non-stop. She watched in disbelief as donations flooded in. 25,000, 50 or 100. By evening, she had over 300,000 Nigerian nairas. No one questioned it. After all, it came from Sister Peace. People wept as Peace shared Mama Esther's story during a midweek service. "Let us stretch our hands toward this family," she said tearfully. The church prayed. The pastor even raised an additional offering to support the widow. Peace nodded gratefully, folding the cash with trembling hands. But there was no Mama Esther. No children. No funeral. Just Peace and her perfectly timed tears. She used part of the money to buy food for her prayer group and sent the rest to her savings account. She told herself it was a loan. God would understand. After the success of the fake widow story, Peace couldn't stop thinking of new ideas. Her mind became fertile ground for deception. One day it was a student who needed fees. Another day, it was a family whose house had burned down. Each tale more emotional than the last. And every time, people gave. Their trust in her was complete. Peace began to realize something dangerous. Lies, when dressed in holiness, walk freely. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was profiting. And the church? Still blind, still clapping. With every offering and donation, Peace grew bolder. She wore more elegant lace, now paired with subtle gold accessories. People noticed the glow, but chalked it up to God's favor. No one suspected she was building her empire on their generosity. Even when whispers of her sudden blessings began, they were quickly silenced by her spiritual reputation. She gave testimonies, led vigils, and quoted scripture fluently. She was untouchable. And behind her mask of grace, the devil quietly clapped. By now, Peace had earned a special place in the pastor's heart. He trusted her like a daughter and often called on her for sensitive tasks, from writing official letters to advising on spiritual matters. To him, Peace wasn't just holy, she was wise. But while the pastor saw a helper, Peace saw leverage. The closer she got to the altar, the easier it was to move unseen. She now had access to both the pulpit and the purse. And no one, not even the man of God, saw the danger standing beside him. Peace's account balance grew steadily. What started as a few thousand now crossed six figures. It didn't come in one big drop. It trickled in through small acts of faith, donations, love offerings, and help money. Her phone constantly buzzed with alerts, and her lips always curled in silent thanks, not to God, but to gullibility. She didn't touch it at first. She just liked seeing the numbers rise. Then one day, she ordered herself a new phone, a sleek, expensive model. The payment was instant. For once, she didn't need to pray and wait. She felt powerful. Peace learned how to forge receipts and edit images with free apps. She even created an online form for her fake scholarship fund, complete with a logo and testimonials from fake students. The details looked so real, even she was impressed. She shared it in church groups and community platforms. The form asked for a commitment fee, and people paid eagerly. She created fake confirmations and promised processing in God's time. People believed. After all, it was Sister Peace. If she said it, it had to be true. Peace created a voice note pretending to be a desperate mother. She muffled her voice and added crying sound effects. The recording was emotional and heartbreaking, and when she forwarded it, people wept. "Please," the voice begged, "help my daughter stay in school." Donations poured in. Some people sent their last 5,000 Nigerian nairas. Others mobilized entire prayer chains. Peace collected everything with ease. Her victims never knew the only real voice in the audio was hers, rehearsed, edited, and perfectly evil. The next scheme was bold. Study in Canada, fully sponsored church initiative. Peace designed a brochure and announced that 5 slots were available for serious-minded youths. The fee was 150,000 Nigerian nairas for processing. No refund. No questions. People rushed in. Parents sold phones, others borrowed money. Peace created fake acceptance letters and even mocked up visa stamps. She told them to stay prayerful and wait. By the time they realized nothing was coming, she had already blocked their numbers and changed her SIM. Peace launched the Sister Peace Grace Foundation, a fake nonprofit built on lies but wrapped in godliness. She posted pictures of children she'd never met, held small gatherings with rented photographers, and shared them online as evidence of impact. The community was proud. She received awards, invitations, and more donations. Ironically, the very people she scammed celebrated her for her heart for the poor. Peace smiled and posed for the cameras. She was now a star, built entirely on shadows. Peace's phone rarely stopped ringing. Everyone wanted to partner with her foundation, invite her to speak, or donate to her cause. She had become a symbol of divine favor, a walking testimony of God's blessings. Yet, with every smiling photograph and church applause, her heart grew colder. This wasn't ministry, it was manipulation perfected. She created a schedule packed with events, outreach in a rural village, a women's empowerment seminar, and even a prayer breakfast with local leaders. She always showed up glowing, with a Bible in hand and gentle words on her lips. Behind the scenes, she was cashing out. The venues were rented cheaply or sponsored. The rest of the funds quietly disappeared into her own account. No one dared question her. One Sunday, Peace stood up during testimony time and announced a 500,000 Nigerian nairas donation to the church building fund. The entire congregation gasped. She smiled modestly, quoting a verse about giving with joy. The pastor was overwhelmed. "May your pocket never run dry," he declared. But this offering wasn't about generosity. It was insurance. Peace had begun to hear whispers, tiny, doubtful murmurs about her wealth. Her donation was strategic, to buy loyalty, to silence questions. The more she gave, the more untouchable she became. She wasn't giving from abundance, she was paying for protection. When Peace walked into service the next week with a braided 28-inch frontal wig and the latest iPhone, Even the blind noticed. Her once humble appearance had evolved into elegant class, still tasteful, but no longer quiet. Some murmured. Others smiled enviously. She deserves it, a few whispered. God is rewarding her service. But one woman in the back row stared too long. Her name was Sister Tochi. She had been in the same prayer circle with Peace from the beginning, and something about this transformation no longer sat right with her. It wasn't just the glow-up, it was the air Peace now carried, polished, powerful, and distant. Tochi approached Peace after the midweek service. "Sister Peace, can we talk?" she asked softly. Peace smiled, nodded, and followed her to a quiet corner. "I don't mean to offend, but things are changing. People are talking," Tochi said gently. "And I've noticed some things too." Peace laughed, light and holy. "Tochi, be careful. Don't let the devil plant suspicion in your heart." She squeezed her hand and added, "People will always talk. But don't forget who you're talking about." Tochi walked away unsure. Peace walked away untouched. That night, Peace sat alone in her room, the city noise humming in the background. She stared at her reflection, makeup wiped, earrings off. Just her. The donations she received that day were still untouched on her table. But for the first time in months, her chest felt tight. She knelt down, not to pray, but to think. "God, are you still watching me?" she whispered. Silence. Then she stood, composed her face, and smiled at the mirror. "Even if you are, I'm too far gone now." Peace was preparing for her next foundation outreach when her phone rang. The number was unfamiliar. "Hello," she answered, casually flipping through donation envelopes. A deep male voice replied, "Is this Sister Peace from Grace Foundation?" She smiled. "Yes, speaking." There was a pause. "Do you remember Emmanuel from Enugu? You collected 200,000 Nigerian nairas for a scholarship 3 years ago." Peace's smile vanished. "Sorry, I don't recall," but the line had already gone dead. She froze. That name. That scam. From before she refined her methods. She thought he'd disappeared. Apparently, he hadn't. 2 days later, a private message hit Peace's foundation page. It was Emmanuel. Attached were screenshots of bank transfers, WhatsApp chats, and even a voice note. His message was short. "If you don't refund me in 48 hours, I will expose everything." Panic crept in. Peace deleted the message immediately, blocked his account, and removed her page's contact info. But it didn't calm her. Her hands shook as she held her phone. This wasn't a stranger. This was a ghost from her own dirty history, one with proof. Peace went on with her life as if nothing happened. On Instagram, she posted a soft photo of her Bible beside a lit candle, captioned, "When the enemy comes like a flood, the Lord will lift a standard." Likes poured in. Followers praised her strength and grace. In private, she updated her passwords, changed her SIM card, and backed up her fake donation logs to a flash drive. Emmanuel didn't resurface. For now, the flood had been blocked. And Peace. She believed she had successfully baptized her mess in scripture once again. The following week, Peace suddenly announced that she would be taking a spiritual retreat. "I need to hear God clearly for the next season," she told her followers. The church clapped. The pastor prayed for her. No one suspected it was a cover. She traveled to another state and rented a quiet Airbnb under a different name. For 10 days, she lay low, no posts, no appearances. Just her journal, and her growing anxiety. She had escaped trouble for now, but Peace knew how fire behaves. Even buried, it waits for air. Peace returned just in time for the pastor's 60th birthday. The celebration was grand, and Peace outdid herself. She presented him with a framed portrait of him and his late wife, beautifully painted and imported. "How did she afford this?" someone whispered. The pastor was touched. He prayed over her in public, calling her the pillar of this generation. Cameras flashed. Social media buzzed. But in the crowd, Sister Tochi watched in silence. The painting was impressive, but it wasn't Peace's humility that stood out anymore. It was how desperately she needed to be seen. It was a small mistake, or so she thought. Peace had meant to transfer 50,000 Nigerian nairas to a fabric vendor, but mistakenly sent it to a church member with a similar name. The woman, Sister Ronk, was confused when she received the alert. "Ah, Sister Peace sent me money," she told her husband excitedly. But something didn't add up. The name on the account was different, not the foundation's official name. Curious, Ronk quietly asked the church's finance officer if Peace used her personal account for church funds. He shook his head. And that was the beginning. Peace didn't notice the growing suspicion. She was too busy mentoring her spiritual daughters. A group of young women looked up to her, copying her style, her soft speech, her online prayer clips. "We want to be like you," one said. She smiled. "It's all God." But in truth, Peace enjoyed the power. She taught them how to organize charity drives, subtly hinting at what was okay to keep. Some were uncomfortable but stayed quiet. Others learned too well. The lie was becoming a lineage. It started subtly. The lead guitarist stopped showing up. The choir mistress resigned without explanation. Whispers circled that things were not right, especially around Peace. "Too much attention," one chorister said. "Too many gifts, too many secrets." The church choir, once united, grew divided. People avoided rehearsals. Peace tried to regain control, offering to fund uniforms and buy snacks. But some saw her now, not as a giver, but as a manipulator. The music was fading, and so was the silence. The church secretary received an envelope. No name, no return address. Inside was a printed letter and several photocopied bank transactions, all linked to Peace. The letter read, "If the church truly walks in light, then it must not ignore the shadow standing on its altar." The envelope was handed to the pastor. He read it twice, then again. He didn't want to believe it. But there it was, evidence. Not just whispers anymore. Not rumors. Receipts. The final blow didn't come from the church. It came from social media. A video of Peace leading a powerful worship session went viral. In the comments, people praised her voice, until one comment appeared. "Isn't this the woman who scammed my cousin in Enugu?" The thread exploded. Others joined. Screenshots surfaced. Accusations piled up. Someone tagged her foundation page. The algorithm did the rest. By nightfall, Peace's face, calm, holy, and smiling, was now trending for all the wrong reasons. An emergency leadership meeting was called after Sunday service. No one said it aloud, but everyone knew it was about Peace. She entered the office gracefully, pretending not to notice the tension. The pastor sat at the head of the table, the anonymous envelope in front of him. "Peace," he said quietly. "Someone is accusing you of misusing funds. Can you explain this?" She smiled faintly. "Sir, anyone can fabricate receipts." But her voice lacked its usual warmth. The room remained silent. For the first time, Peace felt cornered, not spiritually, but politically. Her stage was shrinking. Online, things were worse. Each time Peace tried to post, dozens of angry comments followed. "Thief in lace," "Queen of scams," "Church Jezebel." Some sent voice notes to her foundation, pretending to need help, just to trap her into another lie. She deleted comments, disabled messages, and eventually made her page private. But screenshots never die. Old chats, receipts, and even a recording of her voice note scam resurfaced. She was being tried in the harshest court, the comment section, where forgiveness is rare and truth spreads like fire. The pastor paced his office. He had loved Peace like a daughter. She was there when his wife passed. She led worship with grace, and she'd once prayed for him in tears. But now, the evidence was undeniable. Her foundation was unregistered. Her testimonies had no records. He wept in silence before calling the board. "We must suspend her," he finally said. "Let her defend herself before God and man." It wasn't just about Peace anymore. It was about the soul of the church. The letter was handed to Peace after midweek service. It was short and formal. "You are hereby suspended from all church activities pending internal investigation." She read it with a blank face, folded it, and nodded slowly. Outside, she sat in her car for nearly an hour, not moving. Her phone buzzed with a missed call from her decorator and 2 unread DMs. Her mind didn't register them. For the first time in a long while, Peace had no plan. Just silence, and a growing void where her confidence used to be. At home, Peace sat on the floor in her wrapper, barefaced and barefoot. No camera, no followers, no stage. She looked around at the expensive curtains, the gold-accented mirror, the shoes lined neatly by the door, all bought with holy lies. She reached for her Bible, then stopped. Her hands trembled. "God," she whispered, "was I wrong, or were you silent too long?" No voice replied. She closed her eyes. The darkness she used to manipulate now surrounded her, not because she was hidden, but because no one was looking anymore. On Sunday, the pastor addressed the entire congregation. His voice was heavy, almost cracked. There are times when even those closest to us fall short of righteousness. Sister Peace has been suspended pending investigations into financial misconduct. Let us not mock, but pray. Gasps filled the sanctuary. Some wept. Others whispered. But for most, it was disbelief. Peace, the sister who prayed in tongues, who laid hands on the sick. The betrayal wasn't just spiritual, it felt personal. Trust had been weaponized, and now, everyone bled. Peace returned home to find an envelope at her door, a quit notice. Her rent was months overdue. She had diverted funds to cover up Emmanuel's threats and legal consultations. With her foundation frozen and church ties broken, the money had stopped flowing. She sat on her tiled floor and laughed bitterly. Is this how it ends? The neighbors passed her door more often now, slower than before. Her silence was no longer mysterious. It was pitiful. The woman who once dripped grace now sat, forgotten, on a plastic chair beside borrowed dignity. A journalist reached out with an offer, a paid exclusive. Tell your side of the story, she said. Peace hesitated. She knew the power of words. For years, she used stories to open wallets. But now the stage frightened her. In the end, she declined. Not because she was ready to confess, but because for the first time, she had nothing left to sell. Her silence, once holy, now felt like chains. She wasn't hiding for strategy anymore. She was hiding because she didn't know who she was without the lie. Sister Tochi sat down with the church board. I've known Peace for years, she began. She was gifted, but also wounded. She needed help long ago, but we only praised her. She didn't defend Peace's actions, but she reminded them that monsters often begin as neglected daughters. Her words softened some hearts. Not all, but enough. Tochi left that day with peace in her spirit. She had planted what the church had once forgotten, accountability with compassion. Whether Peace changed or not, the church needed to. Emmanuel finally pressed charges: fraud, impersonation, public deception. Peace was arrested quietly one morning. No resistance, no tears. At the station, as the officers processed her, she overheard someone whisper, "That's the church girl from the viral video." In her cell, a woman asked gently, "Naub Peace?" She nodded. "They say you pray well. Can you pray for me?" Peace stared at her. For once, she had no performance, no angle. She simply closed her eyes and whispered, "God, if you're still listening, this is your child, broken, not fake this time." Peace was moved to the female correctional center the next morning. The cell was hot and crowded, a far cry from the scented prayer rooms she once led. Her fellow inmates stared, some in curiosity, others in quiet judgment. No one offered her a seat. She wasn't Sister Peace here, just another face behind rusting iron bars. She tried to pray aloud that night. The words felt dry, empty. The rhythm of scripture no longer wrapped her in warmth. She had always known what to say, verses to match situations, prayers to impress listeners. But now, with no one watching and no offering basket nearby, the words felt like old scripts from a play she no longer believed in. She missed silence. True silence, not the kind filled with judgment or whispers, but the deep, still quiet of a room alone with God. She remembered being that girl once. Before the wigs, before the fake scholarships, before the lies. Just peace. Poor, unnoticed, but pure. A young woman named Lami eventually spoke to her. "You're the one from the video, right?" Peace nodded. Lami smiled. "You messed up. But people mess up. The difference is whether they stay there." That night, Peace stayed awake, watching the moonlight filter through the bars. She didn't cry. Not yet. But she stopped pretending she didn't feel. The fall was no longer something she could spin or escape. It had landed, hard and final. And in the stillness of that night, for the first time in years, she whispered something real. "God, if you're still here, I'm not hiding anymore." Peace sat on the plastic bench in the visitation room, her wrapper tied tighter than usual. Her hair was covered with a faded scarf, and she looked nothing like the elegant woman who once posted foundation photos in perfectly lit rooms. Her hands trembled slightly as the iron door opened. To her surprise, it was Sister Tochi. She wore simple clothes and carried a bag of provisions. No cameras. No drama. Just quiet grace. Peace didn't know what to say. She expected pity or judgment. Instead, Tochi gave her a tired but kind smile. "I brought you some toiletries and books," Tochi said, placing them on the table. "Not everything that ends in prison has to stay broken." Peace blinked. unsure how to receive kindness in a place where shame hung like sweat in the air. They sat for a while, saying little. Then Tochi asked, "Why, peace? Why did you do it?" The question wasn't bitter, it was soft, genuine. Peace stared at her palms, then finally replied, "I was tired of being invisible. Tired of praying and getting crumbs. I found a way, and it worked. Too well." Tochi nodded. "But now?" Peace's voice cracked. "Now I can't tell where the lie ended and I began." That moment was more healing than any sermon she had heard. No shouting, no condemnation, just truth, spoken softly, like oil over old wounds. As Tochi stood to leave, she hugged Peace tightly. "When you get out, if you want to start over, I'll be there." Peace couldn't speak. Her heart, once hardened by applause and offerings, cracked a little more. And in the fracture, something new slipped in. Grace that wasn't bought, earned, or faked. The prison chapel was a far cry from the grandeur of her former church. No microphones, no soft piano chords, no perfectly dressed choir. Just bare walls, plastic chairs, and broken women trying to piece together hope. Peace sat at the back, unnoticed for once, and watched. The chaplain, an older woman with a sharp voice and kind eyes, spoke about truth, not the kind that fills offering baskets, but the kind that exposes and heals. Peace felt the words cut through her like a hot blade. She had spoken about truth for years without ever tasting it herself. Later, the chaplain approached her. "You used to lead worship, didn't you?" Peace nodded slowly. "Would you like to join our choir?" the woman asked. Peace hesitated. The last time she held a microphone, it was a tool for deception. Could she sing without performance? Could she mean the words? That evening, she joined the rehearsal. No lead, no solos, just a voice among others. Her voice cracked in places. Her harmonies weren't perfect. But when she sang, "I surrender all," her lips trembled. This time, she wasn't singing to impress. She was begging, hoping, unlearning. The other inmates welcomed her, not as a fallen celebrity, but as a sister. They didn't need perfection. They needed honesty. And that, finally, was something Peace could begin to give. In that simple, broken-down room, surrounded by scarred women and off-key voices, she began her first true worship, raw, real, and redemptive. During evening cleanup duty, Peace was mopping the corridor floors when she heard a familiar voice echoing from the common room. Someone was playing a compilation of viral church videos on a small, donated tablet. One of the clips was of her, clad in white lace, eyes shut, hands lifted, singing passionately. "Ene this woman," one inmate whispered. "She fine oh." Another added, "She no look like person we go scam church people." The laughter that followed wasn't cruel, just ironic. But Peace stood frozen, the mop dripping water onto her feet. She listened to her own voice, so pure, so convincing, and for a second, it felt like an out-of-body experience. That woman on the screen had control, praise, respect. But here she stood, in bathroom slippers and a stained wrapper, mocked by her former glory. The contrast was suffocating. A younger inmate turned to her. "Auntie Peace, that's really you." Peace nodded silently. The girl studied her, then smiled. "You still day shine small shaw. Maybe when you come out, you go start again, this time for real." Peace gave a weak smile. It wasn't flattery she needed. It was time to undo, to unlearn, and maybe to rebuild. Later that night, she asked the warden if she could donate her old gowns and wigs to the prison's charity closet. She had no use for them now. The voice in the video was an illusion. But the woman who stood barefoot in a prison corridor, she was finally learning how to be real. A prison counselor approached Peace with a suggestion. "You should write letters," she said. "Not to ask for forgiveness, just to acknowledge the harm you've caused. It's the first step to healing, not just for them, but for you." At first, Peace resisted. What good would letters do now? She had lied, taken money, sold hope. But later that night, she sat with a borrowed biro and a stack of lined paper. Her hands hovered for minutes before the first sentence landed. "To Emmanuel, I don't know if this will undo what I did to your dreams, but I see you now. And I'm sorry." She wrote to others too. The single mother whose savings she stole through a fake scholarship. The widower she scammed in the name of church investment. Even the church board, who had once prayed over her so proudly. Each letter was raw. No excuses. No scripture to soften the blow. Just truth. Peace didn't mail them. Not yet. The counselor told her they didn't have to be sent immediately. Healing is slow, she said. You're still bleeding. But the act of writing chipped something heavy off her chest. By morning, her fingers were ink-stained and her eyes swollen from weeping. She hadn't cried like that in years, not even during altar calls or vigils. This wasn't emotional performance. It was the private, painful kind of repentance no one claps for. In those pages, Peace faced herself. Not Sister Peace. Not the fraud. Just a woman finally learning how much damage her silence and sweetness had caused. In the stillness of a humid prison morning, Peace found herself staring at a cracked mirror beside the communal bathroom. It barely reflected clearly, just jagged fragments of her face stitched together in glass. She leaned in and saw what she'd ignored for years. Tired eyes, fine lines, and a sharpness in her jaw she hadn't noticed before. Time had moved, and it had not asked her permission. That day, she was assigned to help an elderly inmate with mobility issues, Mama Zainab, a quiet woman with wise eyes and a deep scar down her neck. As Peace helped her wash clothes in a plastic bucket, Mama Zainab spoke slowly. I used to be someone big, politician's wife. I let the power speak louder than my conscience. Peace didn't respond. She didn't need to. The silence between them was heavy, two women bound by decisions that stained their lives. After a while, Mama Zainab looked at her and asked, "And you? What was your power?" Peace swallowed. "Their trust. I used their trust to eat." The old woman nodded. "Ah, that one is heavier than stealing money. You can return cash. Trust? Eno day come back." That sentence followed Peace all day. Every song she used to sing, every testimony she fabricated, every prayer line she moderated, all powered by the currency of trust. And she had squandered it like pocket change. As night fell, she returned to the mirror. The cracks were still there, but now she understood. It didn't lie. It showed her as she was. Not as the world once saw her, but as she had always been, flawed, fragile, and maybe still forgivable. 2 weeks after writing her unsent apologies, Peace received her first personal letter. It came through the prison chaplain's office, an envelope with shaky handwriting and a stamp already peeling at the corners. The sender? Naomi, a young girl from the church choir. Peace opened it slowly, heart racing. The paper smelled faintly of perfume and dust, like memories pressed between the pages of a hymnal. Naomi's handwriting was uneven but familiar, full of emotion trying to contain itself in ink. "I don't know if I'm allowed to write you," it began. "But I wanted you to know I miss you. Not the things you gave, not the shoes or the snacks. You, the way you held our hands when we sang, the way you taught me to close my eyes when I worship. I still do it, every Sunday, and sometimes, I still feel God when I do." Peace pressed the paper against her chest. It didn't erase her crimes. It didn't make her clean. But it reminded her that not everything she did was a lie. There had been small sparks of sincerity, tiny lights she hadn't noticed while chasing praise. At the end of the letter, Naomi had written, "If you come back, even if it's years from now, please come sit with us. Not to lead, just to sing." Peace wiped a tear from her cheek. Not from shame this time, but something gentler. She folded the letter carefully, tucked it under her thin mattress, and whispered to herself, "If there's still a voice left in me, maybe I'll use it right next time."